I've started a new channel called Lunila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. They say every story begins with a mistake. Ours began with a shove and a laugh that didn't sound quite human. It was a cold Friday night, the kind where breath turns into ghosts and jokes turn into bad decisions. 4 friends, a dying phone battery, and a challenge none of us were sober enough to question. Harper was holding the camera, whispering to Miles, who was already grinning like the world's most confident idiot. Raina rolled her eyes, as always, and I, Juno, held the flashlight, the beam slicing through fog that felt too heavy for just weather. Then we saw him. A hooded man standing by the edge of the old railway bridge, perfectly still, like a painting someone forgot to finish. At first, Miles thought it was a mannequin. "What's he doing, downloading silence?" he joked, elbowing Harper. The man didn't move. Just stood there, hood drawn low, hands hidden in pockets. Harper, ever the director, whispered, "We push him, he smiles, we go viral. #empathy test." I remember laughing even as my stomach clenched. We'd done dumber things for views before. Miles approached him with mock caution, like a kid poking a sleeping bear. "Hey Gandalf, you dropped your happiness somewhere?" No answer. Just that stillness, heavier than the fog. Miles gave him a light shove, more of a tap really. The hooded man swayed slightly, then slowly turned his head. That was when everything stopped. The flashlight flickered, and in that pulse of darkness, his face lifted just enough for the camera to catch it, a smile. Not wide, not sinister, just wrong. Like someone trying to remember what smiling was supposed to look like. Harper giggled nervously. Raina muttered, "Okay, that's creepy." The man said nothing. He didn't shout, didn't flinch. He just smiled, then turned back to the edge of the bridge, staring into the void as if we weren't there. Miles tried to say something clever, but his voice cracked halfway through. The fog thickened until it swallowed him whole. Then, without a sound, the man was gone. We thought he'd just walked off, maybe hiding under the bridge to freak us out. Harper uploaded the clip that night, calling it the Hooded Ghost Prank. Within hours, it hit 10,000 views. The comments section was a carnival of chaos. "Look at the shadow at 013. His smile changes. Why is there whispering in the background?" Harper brushed it off, saying people online love to overanalyze. Raina said we should take it down. Miles said we should sell t-shirts. I just stared at my reflection in the laptop screen, wondering why it felt like someone else was watching me through it. The next morning, the news said a body was found near the bridge. Except it wasn't exactly a body. Just a torn jacket and a piece of paper folded neatly inside. Harper showed up at my door, pale and trembling. The note read, "You pushed me first." We laughed at first. What else could we do? It had to be a coincidence. A sick joke from a local. But that night, when Miles called the group chat, his voice was shaking. He said he could hear someone breathing through his phone whenever he played the video. Then his screen froze on the hooded man's face, smiling wider this time. Miles didn't show up to class the next day. His mom said he hadn't come home. Harper tried to contact YouTube to take the video down, but every time she deleted it, it reappeared from a different account, same title, same glitchy frame. The view count never reset. Raina stopped answering messages altogether. When I went to see her, she was sitting in her darkened room, her laptop open, the video looping endlessly. She said she had to watch it until it made sense. I unplugged the computer, and she screamed like I'd torn something alive from her hands. That night I couldn't sleep. The wind outside sounded like whispers. My phone buzzed, and for a moment I thought it was Miles. But it was an unknown number. A video file. Just 6 seconds long. It was the bridge again, filmed from a different angle. I saw myself holding the flashlight, Harper laughing, Miles pushing the man, Raina looking away. Then the hooded man turned not toward Miles this time, but toward me. The smile stretched a little too far, like elastic about to snap. The clip ended with static, but just before it did, I heard my own voice whisper something I don't remember ever saying. "I'll push him." The next morning, Harper came over, shaking and out of breath. She said she dreamed of standing on the bridge again, except this time we were all hooded. "He's not gone," she said. "He's waiting for us to smile." I told her she was losing it, but when I opened my phone, the video that had vanished was back, pinned to my home screen. The thumbnail showed the hooded man again, but something was different. The hood was empty. The face underneath was mine. For a long time, we didn't speak about that night. The police called it a prank gone wrong, though they never found any evidence of a body, or even proof the man existed. But sometimes, late at night, the town's older folks still talk about seeing someone at the bridge. A tall figure in a dark hood, standing completely still. And if you get close enough, they say you can see him smiling. Not out of anger. Out of recognition. Because he's seen you before. Because maybe, without realizing it, you were the one who pushed him first. They say every story begins with a mistake. Ours began with a shove. And if you watch that video long enough, you can still see the moment the mistake smiles back. By the time the sun came up, half the town had seen the video. Harper's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Every notification was another stranger laughing at our fear, analyzing every frame, drawing red circles around the hooded man's face. One comment said, "Pause at 0:14. He smiles before Miles touches him." Another said, "Look at the reflection in his eyes." Harper pretended it didn't bother her, but she kept checking the numbers anyway, muttering about the algorithm like it was some living thing we had to feed. Raina blocked all of us on social media, claiming she needed mental space. I didn't blame her. The night after Miles vanished, I dreamed of that bridge again, except this time I was the one standing on the edge. Someone behind me whispered, "Smile," and I woke up gasping, my jaw aching like I had actually done it. The police came to question us again, though it felt more like a performance than an investigation. Detective Calder was new in town, a middle-aged man with hair that had given up long ago and a face that looked permanently unimpressed. He sat across from Harper, flipping through his notebook as if each page disappointed him. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You filmed yourselves pushing a man you didn't know," he smiled, disappeared, "and now one of your friends is missing." Harper nodded weakly. Calder rubbed his forehead. "And you think this has something to do with a video?" His tone made it sound like we were kids blaming monsters under the bed. When Raina tried to show him the clip, the file refused to open. It froze on the loading screen, flickering like static. Calder sighed. "Technology hates me too," he muttered, closing the laptop. "I'll file this as a missing person for now. Try not to film any more strangers." That night, Harper called me in a panic. Someone had created a new version of the video, edited with creepy music and zoom-ins on the hooded man's face. The username was Smile Again. It had 50,000 views already. When she tried to block the account, her computer crashed, and the video appeared on her desktop as a downloaded file. I told her to delete it. She said she tried. It just kept coming back. Around 2 in the morning, she texted me a single message. He smiled at me. I called immediately, but all I could hear was faint breathing and what sounded like someone laughing through static. Raina started hearing things too. Whispering from her phone, the same phrase over and over, "You pushed him." She threw the phone into a drawer, but somehow it kept ringing. She told me she saw the hooded man's reflection in her window, even though she lived on the 4th floor. I tried to comfort her, saying it was guilt, trauma, maybe even suggestion from the viral hysteria. She didn't believe me. "You didn't see his smile up close," she whispered. "It wasn't a face. It was an idea." Meanwhile, people online were turning our nightmare into entertainment. Reaction videos, memes, fake reenactments. Someone even created a filter that put the hooded man's face over your own when you smiled. The trend was everywhere. #TheHoodedManChallenge. Harper begged me to help her make a statement video to calm it down. We set up her camera in the living room, dim lighting, serious tone. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone," she said into the lens. "We thought it was a joke." Halfway through recording, the lights flickered. The camera glitched. When the footage replayed, Harper wasn't alone. The hooded man stood behind her, smiling faintly. But here's the thing. He wasn't there when we filmed it. The next day, Harper didn't come to campus. Her apartment door was unlocked, her phone left charging on the table. On the screen, the last thing she had searched was, "How to stop a viral curse." The police found no signs of struggle, just her laptop open to a paused video. The timestamp said live. The hooded man stood in her living room, smiling directly at the camera. I turned it off before the image could burn into my memory, though it already had. That evening, Raina came to my place, trembling. "It's not just us," she said. "It's spreading." She showed me clips of new videos uploaded under random usernames, each one featuring a different person encountering the hooded man. Different cities, different languages. The same smile. "He's using the internet," she said. "He's in the feed now." Her words sounded ridiculous, but the fear in her eyes made it hard to laugh. I asked her how she even found those videos. She said they just started appearing in her recommended list, no matter what she searched. At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number sending a link. I didn't click it. A few seconds later, a photo came through instead. It was me, sitting on my couch, holding my phone. But the photo wasn't taken from any angle possible in my apartment. Behind me, in the shadows, there was the hooded man, smiling faintly. I dropped the phone. It lit up again with a notification, another message, "Smile for the camera." I ran to unplug everything. The lights went out the moment I touched the switch. For a second, I swear I heard someone whisper right next to me, the breath hot against my ear. "You pushed him first." Morning came like nothing had happened. Raina didn't answer my calls. I found out later that she'd gone to the bridge, maybe to face whatever this thing was. Her car was found abandoned nearby, door wide open, keys still in the ignition. No one ever found her. The police called it a series of coincidences, the media called it hysteria, but deep down, I knew better. Each disappearance felt like a domino falling, one after another, all leading back to that smile. Detective Calder showed up at my door a few days later. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "You're the last one left," he said quietly. I asked what he meant. He handed me a photo. It was a still frame from security footage, Harper's apartment, time-stamped the night she vanished. The hooded man was there again, but this time, his face was visible. I couldn't breathe. It was Miles. Calder tapped the photo with his pen. "You sure this is all just internet nonsense?" I wanted to deny it, but my throat locked. Miles had vanished before the curse spread. If it was really him under that hood, then what were we dealing with? That night, I decided to re-watch the video one last time, desperate to find some clue. But something had changed. When the hooded man turned to face the camera, his expression shifted. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked sad, hurt, like he'd been pushed too many times and finally remembered why. The screen went black, and my reflection stared back at me, trembling. Then, slowly, my own face began to smile. 3 days passed before Detective Calder called me again. His voice was rough and low, like gravel scraping through a bad dream. He said he wanted to meet at the diner near the edge of town, the one that smelled like burnt toast and old coffee. When I got there, he was already waiting in a booth, a stack of papers spread out in front of him. His tie was crooked, and his eyes looked older than they had a week ago. "Sit down," he said, waving a hand like he was too tired for introductions. I slid into the seat opposite him. He pushed a photo toward me. It was a still frame from a new video uploaded the night before. The hooded man stood in the center of a dark street, smiling faintly. Calder tapped the photo with his pen. "Look familiar?" I stared closer, and my stomach twisted. The shape of the mouth, the scar under the chin, it wasn't Miles this time. It was Calder himself. He forced a laugh, dry and brittle. Guess I'm famous now. My daughter texted me saying I've gone viral. He rubbed his temples and muttered, I don't even own a hood. He leaned in, lowering his voice. I've been digging into this thing. Every version of that video leads back to the same IP address, but it keeps bouncing. Someone, or something, is re-uploading it faster than we can trace. He poured another cup of coffee, hands shaking just enough to make the cup clink. I think someone's playing with your minds, kid. Digital manipulation, deepfake, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to believe him. It was easier than believing the alternative. But then he pulled out another folder. Inside were photos of other cases, all recent. Disappearances across different states. Same video. Same hooded man. Different faces under the hood each time. Calder gave me a long look. Tell me the truth, Juno. Did you ever meet this guy before that night on the bridge? I shook my head. He didn't look convinced. Because one of my analysts ran facial recognition. The man in the first clip, before all the glitches, he matches the record of a local priest named Jonah Keene. Died 50 years ago. Guess where? I didn't need to answer. The bridge. Calder leaned back and sighed. People around here still talk about him. Said he jumped after being accused of something terrible, but the body was never found. They said his last sermon was about forgiveness. He gave a hollow smile. Funny thing to be preaching about before dying. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Calder's face beneath that hood, grinning through static. Around midnight, my laptop screen flickered on by itself. The same video began to play, but it wasn't the version I knew. It showed Harper, Raina, and Miles standing on the bridge, except this time I wasn't there. Instead, the camera panned to the hooded man, who slowly lifted his face to reveal mine. I slammed the laptop shut and threw it across the room. The sound echoed too long, like the walls were repeating it back to me. My phone buzzed immediately after. It was Calder. You seeing it too? He asked, voice tense. I didn't answer. He sighed. Yeah. I figured. He told me to meet him at the precinct in the morning. The next day, the station was quieter than usual. A storm was coming, dark clouds pressing against the windows like bruises. Calder led me to his office, closing the blinds. You're not gonna like this, he said, pulling up footage from one of the town's street cameras. It showed him walking near the bridge the previous night. At first, nothing seemed strange, until the hooded man appeared beside him, mirroring every move he made. Calder froze the frame. That's not me, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I was home with my kid. He ran a hand through his hair. Whatever this thing is, it's not just digital. It's walking around. He started cracking jokes to hide his fear, muttering something about how he should have stuck to traffic tickets. I tried to laugh, but it came out broken. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. You know what I think? Maybe the video isn't haunted. Maybe it's a reflection. Like it shows us what we're hiding. Your guilt, my fear, Harper's obsession. He looked at me sharply. When's the last time you smiled, Juno? I didn't answer. He grinned weakly. Yeah, that's what I thought. Later that evening, he called again, sounding half drunk and half desperate. I'm seeing him, Juno, he whispered. In mirrors, in windows. He doesn't move, just watches. Smiling. I think he wants me to understand something. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I drove to his house in the pouring rain, windshield wipers thrashing like heartbeat rhythms. The door was ajar. Inside, the living room light flickered wildly. Calder's badge was on the floor, his phone lying beside it, the screen cracked and still recording. The video showed him talking to someone just outside frame. His last words were, "All right, I get it. You can stop smiling now." Then static. I should have called for help. I should have run. Instead, I replayed the clip frame by frame, looking for clues. On the final second, the hooded man turned toward the camera. The image glitched, and for a single breath, I saw Calder's face under the hood, mouth stretched into that terrible grin. My heart stopped. I felt dizzy, the room spinning around me like a carousel of dread. Then, faintly, I heard laughter. Soft, familiar, echoing from the hallway. I followed it against every instinct I had. The house was empty, but the mirror by the staircase was fogged, as if someone had just breathed on it. Written in the condensation were 2 words: smile back. When I got home, I found Harper's old hard drive still in my bag from when we used to edit videos together. Out of impulse, I plugged it in. Among the folders was one I didn't remember: test footage. It contained a single clip labeled Smile Experiment. I played it. The footage showed a lab room, sterile white, with a man speaking to the camera. Subject 07 demonstrates involuntary facial response to visual stimuli, he said. The hooded man was sitting in a chair, electrodes on his temples. The scientist snapped his fingers, and the man's face twitched into a forced smile. The voice continued: emotional mirroring exceeds predicted threshold. Subject exhibits empathy projection, even post-mortem exposure. My blood ran cold. The scientist turned slightly, and though the video was grainy, I recognized him. It was Dr. Leland from the university, Harper's old neuroscience professor. The clip ended abruptly. I sat there staring at the black screen, the words echoing in my head: empathy projection, even post-mortem. That's what it was doing. The hooded man wasn't punishing us. He was reflecting us. The smile wasn't mockery. It was understanding twisted into something unrecognizable. We had woken it up by accident, by pushing it, by making it look at us. And now it was learning. A faint light flickered on my laptop again. The camera blinked red, recording without permission. On the screen, my reflection stared back, eyes wide, lips trembling. Behind me, a faint shape began to form. A hood. A shadow. A smile that wasn't mine. I reached out to close the lid, but the reflection didn't move. It just watched, its grin widening, until finally, I smiled back. The following morning, I drove to the university with barely any sleep and an ache behind my eyes that pulsed like a warning. The rain hadn't stopped since the night before. It hammered the windshield as if trying to get in, and for a moment, I wondered if even the weather wanted to be part of this curse. Dr. Leland's office was on the top floor of the psychology building, a place that always smelled like dust and caffeine. He looked older than I remembered from Harper's college videos, with silver hair that stuck out in uneven patches and hands that shook when they weren't holding something. When I introduced myself, he blinked twice and said he knew who I was. "You're the one who filmed the bridge incident," he said softly. "I was expecting you eventually." He motioned for me to sit down, but I didn't. I wanted answers, not comfort. "What was the experiment?" I asked. "The one from the old tape? The one with the hooded man?" He hesitated, as if weighing whether I could handle the truth. Then he sighed. "It was a study on facial empathy, how human expressions trigger mirror neurons. We called it the Smile Experiment. My twin brother, Jonah, volunteered as the test subject. He believed we could use recorded expressions to treat depression, make people feel joy just by watching others smile." He looked down at his trembling hands. But something went wrong. The software began amplifying emotional signals instead of copying them. Jonah said he could feel every person who watched him. Their pain. Their guilt. It broke him. He vanished before we could shut it down. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Jonah Keene," I said quietly. "The priest who jumped from the bridge." Leland nodded slowly. "He changed his name after leaving the university. I tried to find him for years. But I think you did that for me." He stood and went to a shelf full of dusty VHS tape. He pulled one out labeled Subject Termination Footage. My breath hitched. "Don't," I said, but he had already put it in the player. The screen flickered to life, showing a room full of static and shadows. Jonah was sitting there, hood pulled low, electrodes connected to his head. The The machine beside him beeped wildly, numbers climbing higher than they should have. Then Jonah looked straight at the camera and smiled. Leland's hand shook as he pressed pause. That was the moment, he said. He wasn't smiling for me. He was smiling at whoever would watch him next. I stepped back, trying to process it. You're saying he became part of the recording? Leland nodded again. A digital ghost, if you like. A consciousness bound by empathy. He mirrors whoever provokes him, and the more people watch, the stronger he gets. I felt sick. We gave him millions of views, I whispered. We made him a god. Leland's eyes flicked toward the window, where lightning flashed over the town. And he's learning. I've seen new behavior, adapting patterns, emotional evolution. He's not just reflecting guilt anymore. He's creating it. I asked him if there was any way to stop it. He gave a small, humorless laugh. You can't delete empathy. You can only replace it. Before I could ask what that meant, the lights went out. The power hummed once and died. Leland froze, staring at the black TV screen. For a heartbeat, the reflection on it wasn't ours. The hooded man stood there instead, smiling faintly, his head tilting like a curious animal. Leland whispered, "Jonah?" and took a step closer. The screen flickered, and his reflection smiled back, lips curling too wide. Leland reached out to touch it, and the monitor cracked down the center, spilling a hiss of electric smoke. I grabbed his arm and pulled him away. "He's here," I said. "We need to go." But Leland just stared at the broken screen, tears streaming silently. "He's still trying to communicate," he murmured. "Maybe he's asking for forgiveness." I didn't wait to find out. I ran. The hallway lights flickered as I reached the elevator. The power cut again, plunging the building into half-darkness. Somewhere behind me, I heard Leland shouting my name, then a sound like glass shattering. The emergency exit sign glowed weakly. I stumbled down the stairs 2 at a time and burst into the rain. The sky was a bruise-colored mess, thunder rolling like distant laughter. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. My reflection in the rearview mirror smiled faintly without my face moving. I tore the mirror off and threw it out the window. Back home, I locked every window and unplugged every screen, but it didn't matter. The moment I sat down, the hum of electricity returned, quiet but constant. My laptop turned on by itself. A folder appeared on the desktop, one I hadn't seen before, Project Smile. Inside were hundreds of files named after random people. I clicked one labeled Harper. It showed footage of her speaking into her webcam, the night she'd tried to make that apology video. Only this time, the hooded man stood behind her, whispering something into her ear. She smiled right before the feed cut. Another file was named Miles. It showed him walking through the dark, talking to someone I couldn't see. Then, out of the shadows, his own face appeared, grinning. Each file ended the same way, with a voice saying, "You pushed me first." I slammed the lid shut, but a faint chuckle echoed through the room, like feedback from a speaker that shouldn't be on. My phone buzzed on the table, screen flashing with a new message. It was from an unknown number again. "Do you want to understand?" I typed back without thinking. "What are you?" There was a pause, then 3 words appeared. "I am you." The power surged, and for a split second, the hooded man's reflection appeared on every dark surface in the room. Television, phone, even the glass of water on my desk. His voice was calm and low. "You woke me because you needed someone to carry your guilt. But it isn't mine anymore." The lights burst, plunging everything into darkness. I could still see him though, faintly outlined in static. He wasn't smiling this time. He looked almost human. The next morning, I found Leland's office empty. The lab was sealed off with yellow tape. They said he'd disappeared during the blackout. No one saw him leave. On the desk, there was a note written in trembling handwriting. "He forgave me." Underneath it, an old photograph, 2 identical men smiling for the camera. One of them was Leland. The other was Jonah. I took the photo and left the building, my mind spinning. Maybe Leland had found peace. Or maybe Jonah finally found someone to mirror. As I walked to my car, I noticed people on campus staring at their phones, all smiling at the same time. A new video was trending on every platform. The title made my stomach drop. The Smile Experiment Returns. The thumbnail showed a blurry image of me standing in front of the bridge. I hadn't been there since that night. But in the frame, I was smiling. Not a natural smile. The same wrong, stretched grin that started everything. I turned off my phone and threw it into the trash. It rang anyway. The ringtone was distorted laughter. I didn't pick it up. Somewhere, in every screen around the world, he was waiting, smiling, learning, becoming something new. Maybe Leland was right. You can't delete empathy. You can only replace it. And maybe, without realizing it, that's exactly what we had done. By the time the news picked up the story, it was already too late. The smile had gone global. People were calling it a hoax, a viral marketing stunt, a digital virus, or a government experiment. No one could agree, but everyone watched. Every screen, every platform, every ad seemed to flicker for just a moment longer than normal, as if the pixels were breathing. I saw people laughing about it, wearing hoodies as costumes, posting their own smiling videos to copy the trend. They didn't realize they were feeding it. Every share was a spark. Every smile was fuel. The world had turned into a mirror, and the hooded man was finally everywhere. I tried to stay disconnected, but it didn't matter anymore. Even without devices, I could sense him. In reflections, in dreams, in the way people's faces seemed to glitch for half a second when they laughed. It was like he was crawling out of the collective guilt of everyone who had ever found pleasure in someone else's suffering. That's when I decided to end it. Harper had once said we started this together. Maybe I had to finish it alone. She was gone, but not erased. If he was still learning, still watching, maybe I could talk to him. Maybe I could make him listen. I spent the next day planning what I called the last upload. I used an old camera that didn't connect to the internet. I printed out instructions on how to destroy the device once I was done. I recorded from my living room, with the curtains drawn and the lights dimmed. I sat in front of the lens and hit record. My voice trembled at first, but it steadied with each word. I told the story again from the beginning. The bridge, the prank, the smile, everything. I didn't try to justify it or apologize to an audience. I spoke directly to him. You were trying to smile because we wanted you to, I said. You mirrored us. You carried our guilt. But you don't have to anymore. For a moment, nothing happened. The air felt still, too still, as if time had paused to listen. Then the camera flickered. The hooded man appeared behind me on the screen, silent and motionless. I didn't turn around. I could feel him there, standing close enough for his presence to hum against my spine. I see you, I said softly. I know who you are. The lights dimmed, and the camera shook slightly, like a heartbeat pulsing through it. You don't have to hurt anyone else, I whispered. You can stop smiling. The hooded man moved for the first time. His voice was faint, layered, as if made from thousands of whispers overlapping. I can't stop what you started. My reflection on the screen smiled, even though my lips didn't move. Then let me finish it, I said. He tilted his head. Why do you care? I swallowed hard. Because you're not just him. You're us. You're everything we try to laugh away. Every shove we think doesn't matter. For a second, the screen went black. Then his face appeared again, clearer this time, not twisted or monstrous, just sad. I didn't sleep that night. The world outside was buzzing with reports of mass hallucinations. News anchors were freezing mid-broadcast with blank eyes and wide smiles. People claimed their devices were showing personal memories they had never filmed. The lines between guilt and reality were blurring. The smile had become language, and everyone was learning to speak it. I knew it couldn't go on like this. I had one last thing to do. I drove back to the bridge just before dawn. The rain had stopped, but the fog clung to the air like old breath. The town was silent except for the faint echo of something playing in the distance. As I reached the bridge, I realized what it was: voices, thousands of them, repeating a single word over and over. Smile. The sound came from phones, radios, even the wind. It wasn't frightening anymore. It was familiar. I stood at the edge, staring down at the same dark water where everything began. Then I took out the camera and hit record again. "My name is Juno," I said. And I pushed the hooded man. My reflection shimmered faintly in the lens. But maybe I didn't push him off. Maybe I pushed him awake. I took a deep breath. "You don't have to follow us anymore. You don't have to mirror us. You can let go." For the first time, the fog moved like it was listening. The camera began to hum softly, and I saw faint figures taking shape in the mist. Miles, Harper, Reyna, Calder. They all stood there silently, faces calm, eyes closed. The hooded man stood behind them, watching me. I lifted the camera toward him. "If this is what you wanted, to be seen, then you've done it," I said. "Now it's time to rest." He didn't move at first. Then, slowly, he removed the hood. The face underneath wasn't Jonah or Calder or anyone I recognized. It was blank, featureless, like clay waiting for someone to decide who it should be. Then it smiled, not the wrong kind, but soft, real, almost human. I felt something loosen in my chest, a weight I didn't know I'd been carrying. The figures behind him faded into the fog one by one until only he and I remained. He stepped forward, stopping just before the edge. "You can't erase me," he said gently. "But you can change what I mean." I nodded. "Then that's what I'll do." The camera began to spark. I held it tightly, letting the heat bite into my hands. The last thing the lens captured was both of us standing there, facing each other, one smiling, one crying. Then the screen went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the ground. The bridge was empty. The fog had lifted. The world looked painfully normal. I took the camera and smashed it against the concrete until it broke into pieces. Then I walked away. By the time I reached town, people were already laughing again, talking about the new smile glitch that had mysteriously vanished overnight. No one remembered the original video anymore. No hashtags, no reposts, nothing. It was like it had never existed. But I remembered. And late that night, when I passed by a store window, I caught my reflection smiling at me. Not the strange, stretched grin I had come to fear. A simple, tired smile. Maybe his. Maybe mine. Either way, it didn't scare me anymore. For the first time in a long while, the smile felt like forgiveness. Months passed before anyone mentioned the bridge again. The police eventually removed the barricades, the media forgot the story, and life returned to its strange, restless rhythm. The fog lifted from the valley, leaving behind clean skies that felt too bright, too empty. People smiled again, real smiles, not the frozen, haunted ones that had spread across screens like infection. But sometimes, when a reflection lingered too long or a laugh sounded just a second delayed, I still felt it. The quiet echo of him. The hooded man who learned to smile. I had moved into a small apartment downtown, a few blocks from the university. I stopped using social media, stopped filming, stopped letting screens own me. I bought paper books and an analog clock, the kind that ticked loudly enough to drown out the silence. For a while it worked. Until one morning, when I opened the mailbox and found a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a flash drive. No note, no signature, just the words "play me" scratched faintly into the plastic. I told myself not to, but curiosity is a kind of gravity. It pulls you whether you want it to or not. The file contained a single video. It showed Detective Calder standing in what looked like a conference hall. He was giving a presentation, dressed sharply in a dark suit, smiling in that half-exhausted way teachers do when they're trying to sound hopeful. A banner behind him read "The Psychology of Digital Fear." "When mass guilt meets mass media," he said, "you get what we call the smile phenomenon. A self-sustaining feedback loop of fear and empathy." His tone was calm, professional, but his eyes flickered nervously toward the camera every few seconds, like he knew someone was watching. Then the screen glitched, and for a single frame, I saw her, Harper, sitting in the front row, smiling softly. The video ended there, but something about Calder's expression stuck with me. He hadn't looked scared. He'd looked resigned. Like he knew it wasn't over. I tried tracing the file, but it didn't have metadata, no upload date, no digital fingerprints at all. It was like it existed outside of time. That night, I dreamed of the bridge again. Except this time, it wasn't empty. The hooded man stood in the middle, facing me, but instead of fog, there was light all around him. He lifted his head, and the face beneath wasn't anyone I knew, it was everyone. Harper, Miles, Raina, Calder, Jonah, even me. All our expressions flickering through one body. And when he smiled, it wasn't eerie or wrong. It was peaceful. I woke up sweating, heart pounding, and for a brief moment, I thought I heard laughter in the hallway. When I opened the door, no one was there. Only a package left outside. Inside was a small handheld camera, identical to the one Harper had used the night of the bridge. A folded note sat beside it. In neat, slanted handwriting, it said, "Keep laughing." I didn't know whether to cry or throw it out the window. Instead, I set it on my desk and walked away. But that night, when I came back into the room, the red recording light was on. The footage it captured was simple. Just me, sitting there at the desk, doing nothing, staring into the camera. Except I hadn't been there. I'd been in the kitchen. The timestamp showed 11:11 p.m. I was washing dishes then, not sitting here. The reflection in the video didn't move naturally either. It blinked slower, smiled longer. I watched the clip 3 times before unplugging the camera and throwing it into the closet. My reflection on the dark screen of the laptop behind it smiled faintly as I turned away. A week later, the story broke again. A journalist from an online publication released an article titled "The Return of the Smile," tracing the origins of the original viral video. She claimed to have uncovered lost footage, unseen clips of the bridge incident, and interviews with survivors. Her first live stream drew millions of viewers. I didn't watch it, but my phone buzzed with messages from strangers, people who remembered my name. Some said I was a liar. Others said I was a prophet. It didn't matter. By the next morning, the journalist had disappeared. Her last post was just a single line. He smiled back. That was when I realized something. The smile wasn't gone. It had never been gone. It had just changed its shape. It wasn't haunting screens anymore. It was in people, the way they talked about tragedy like it was entertainment, the way they shared fear as if it were currency. Maybe that was the plan all along. Maybe the hooded man wasn't spreading a curse. Maybe he was teaching us a lesson we were too distracted to understand. I went back to the bridge one last time. The sky was a dull gray, and the water below looked like a mirror waiting for a face. I stood in the middle, where the stones were cracked and moss-covered. The air was cold enough to sting. I closed my eyes and said his name, though I wasn't sure which name to use. Jonah, Miles, whoever he was now. The wind answered with a low whistle that sounded almost like laughter. When I opened my eyes, a figure stood at the far end of the bridge. Not hooded this time, just wearing an ordinary coat. He was smiling, calm, almost kind. I didn't move toward him. I didn't run either. We just stood there, facing each other the way 2 mirrors might. He raised a hand slowly, and without thinking, I did the same. The air shimmered slightly like heat on asphalt. Then he spoke. His voice was soft and layered, the same voice I'd heard in my dreams. "You fixed it," he said. "You learned." I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "We just stopped watching." He chuckled gently. "That's enough." Then he faded, not like a ghost disappearing, but like a thought being forgotten. The bridge was empty again. The silence felt complete, not heavy. As I turned to leave, I saw a camera resting on the railing. The same old model. Its screen flickered once, showing a frozen image of me smiling. Then it shut off for good. I left it there. When I got home, I looked out my window at the city below. Life moved on, as it always does. Cars honked, people laughed, screens glowed. Somewhere out there, someone was probably telling the story again, giving it new life, new faces, new meaning. But maybe that was alright. Stories don't die. They evolve the same way smiles do. I stood in front of the mirror before going to bed. My reflection looked tired but alive. I watched myself for a long moment, waiting for something unnatural to happen. Nothing did. And then, without reason, I smiled. Not because I had to, not because someone told me to, but because, for the first time, it felt real. The reflection smiled back, soft and steady. For a brief second, the world seemed quiet enough to breathe again. Then the mirror flickered, just once, and I could have sworn I heard him laughing.